Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is a video that I'm just making on Saturday afternoon. It's actually the day after St. Patrick's Day, Saturday, although everybody will be in town playing and partying and listening to music this afternoon, and I'm still here at work. I'm about to leave, but I was asked for a video to go into the BMW Club magazine this month, and I thought, well, I haven't made one for a while, so I was just in the middle of giving the old GSPD a bit of a tickle up in the carbies, and actually as I was putting everything away I was mucking around with my various carby tuning devices just to see what the differences were, and I thought, well, you know what, I'll have a little movie on this and just have a chat about it quickly. For a long time I had a Twin Max. I had a Twin Max for probably the best part of 15 or 18 years. I bought it out of France at the behest of a guy named Mike Milenovic, who was one of the original airhead guys in Brisbane. God rest him, he passed away a couple of years ago. And he put me onto these things. They were originally made in France, and they were quite expensive. They still are reasonably expensive, but now I notice they're made in Portugal. This particular one here was actually gifted to me by the American importer of Twin Max into the US. When we were cleaning up the shed, and he saw that I had one and that I had to throw it out because it was dead. He very, very kindly sent me a replacement, compliments of him, and I've been using it ever since. I have had one for a long time, and I am very familiar with them, and I use them a lot. I also had a harmonizer that went to God, but at the moment they're out of stock and not being made, so I didn't invest in another one of those. I found the harmonizer to be a fabulous thing if you've got a lot of time. It's not so good in a fast workshop because they're very slow. They're very, very highly damped in their vacuum lines, and if you get something that's a fair way out or got a big vacuum leak, it'll upset them a fair bit, and it's very hard to correct them. They have a really good function where you use one line only and program it, and it measures inches of mercury, which is what they use when they're working out how to set the air idle mixture screws to the best advantage. The harmonizer was probably the best I've seen of that type of machine for doing that job. The Twin Max doesn't really help me with that facility, but what the Twin Max will do, and it's the one I've got hooked up to the bike at the moment, is it will also give you a very quick and fast indication of a vacuum leak on one side or the other, which in a workshop, when you're putting back together carbies or putting back together an engine and trying to tune a bike up, it's really helpful if you've got something that can help you lock on to where the problem is straight away, which that is its really strong suit. If you follow the instructions, it tells you to turn the sensitivity down and do this and do that. I've always run mine because the manufacturer, when I bought it, told me to do this when I was conversing with them via email one day. You turn it on first, you fool. If I turn the sensitivity down, you can turn this knob around and get that there. And then it's very highly damped. There's a little needle in the middle that's supposed to be on 0 when everything's in balance. I've always run mine flat out. I turn the sensitivity all the way up. I set the 0, which makes it very tricky to set because it's very sensitive then. Now that will cause the needle to pulse at idle, almost the full width of the scale, both sides. But you know you've got it balanced when you can divide it in half and zeros in the middle. That's how I've always used it. That's how I still use it. And when I start the bike, I'll show you how it works. For me, it's the best and fastest way to get a very quick fix on balancing a carby. I very often do finish them by ear, and the air idle setup's the same. The last one I bought only recently, about 12 months ago, and it is an Australian-made RAYTECH Synchro King. They're made in Western Australia, made in Australia, and I love them for that reason. Anything that's made in Australia and pushed, designed and got to market by Australian ingenuity and Australian perseverance has got my vote. As you know, we've done the same thing with the wedge tail ignition system. Same thing with these Adventure First panniers, which I still think, for my particular kind of use, and I'm not trying to sell them, are still the best pannier I've used on this particular bike in the 18 years that I've owned it. This has a completely different back to front way of working. in terms of what you have to do when you read the scales. So if you're contemplating buying one of these, they're not terribly expensive. They're not much over $100, I don't think. You set your damping here in the same way as you set the damping with the sensitivity scroll on this one. It measures inches of mercury here on both ports, and these lights operate. They're the things that operate in a strange way. When I say strange, if you have the needle on this over on this side flickering, it means that the right hand side is higher in the way it's pulling the cable, or pulling the cable earlier and higher than the left hand side. So what you do is you either drop the cable on that side over here where my hand is, or you lift the cable on this side. Now you need to keep about 1/8 of an inch or a little bit more free play in your cables at idle, so you don't have the carbies revving up when you're turning the handlebars. But it's a fairly logical, thought out thing. If the needle is pushing over this way, it means there's more vacuum on this side, and it actually makes the needle go this way. Sorry, I'll move the camera, this way over here. So you have to compensate by lifting this side to bring it back, or dropping this side to let it suck back. That's essentially how the thing works. That's all it does. This one here has a single line that moves up and down this scale on either side, and as it begins to synchronise, it lights up 2 bars, and when it's properly synchronised, the 2 bars are side by side to each other here and solid. You can then read off the numbers of the amount of mercury that it's saying it's pulling, and it might be out half an inch, or less than half an inch, and you can fine adjust it using these numbers at the end. By putting the dampening up in this, it slows everything down a little bit, but you can get a very, very accurate tune, and a very, very accurate tune on your air idle mixture screws with it as well, once you learn how to use it. It is the way that you adjust from the information you're being given by this is literally back to front. If this side is high, you actually raise it. If this side here, is high, you actually raise the throttle height pull on this side rather than drop it. So when you're trying to use the two of them together and you're as dumb as I am, it's pretty easy to get yourself tangled up. So the rule is I either use one or the other. Today we're using the Twin Max, and hopefully you'll get something out of this very quickly. I've already tuned the bike and it's warm, so we'll give it a kick in the gut. My bike's idle hot at around or just over 1,000 revs, whether they're light flywheels or heavy flywheels. It stables out the pulse. It stops your gearbox from rattling and sounding like you need to lubricate the clutch splines, because you don't. It usually means that your engine's running too slowly or your idle's out of adjustment. Now if you have a look at this, you can see there that needle is pulsing either side of the 0 to just about a 1 on either side. You are not going to get an idle much more even than that. I also idle my heavy flywheel bikes at the same revs. Keeps the oil whizzing around in the motor, keeps the pulses in the engine smooth and together, and makes everything work properly. Now as I raise it, you can see it's just out a tiny touch on that side. And the reason for that was that I didn't realise I'd pulled the handlebar towards me. So as you do that, as you're opening the throttle, of course you're making it a little bit go out. But it is actually spot on. And I'll try it again. And it'll take a second there to come back down to the right idle. They always do. I hope that's been a little bit entertaining for you and that you've learned something. Go to RAYTECH if you want to have a look at that. They make them in 2 and 4 cylinder models. It's a great gadget. I love it to bits and I use it a lot, but I still do love my old Twin Max, I have to say. Ride safely and stay well.